Hello, everybody, and welcome back to the Mindset Model. So, in today's episode, I'm going to be sharing one of the most liberating and freeing mindset shifts that I've made. And this is the moment that I went from saying I failed to what did I learn from this experience? And this is one shift which has really changed the way that I actually look at rejection, challenges, even heartbreak. Oh my goodness me, because the truth is, failure isn't the opposite of success. It's actually a part of it. And starting to see it differently, rather than seeing it as a flaw, seeing it as a feature. So, what even is failure? Failure, we say. So, the word failure itself, when you think about it, it just kind of feels like doom. It feels like it's the end. But who taught us that failure actually equals being bad? Who actually told us this? So, who told us that getting it wrong actually means you're wrong? That's not actually true. It's just a word, it's just a concept, and it's just a meaning that we've been taught. And it's something that we really fear as well. When you think of failing, you instantly feel the fear. And you get that shame attached to it as well. It just feels so heavy. But the truth is, every single human fails. Every single human on this planet. You're supposed to. That is how life works, okay? It's how you work. Say, for example, when you were a baby back in the day, probably can't remember, but when you were a baby, before you could actually walk, when you were learning to walk, your parents were like, oh, wow, the baby's not very good at this walking business. Look at it failing all the time. No, you were praised. You were celebrated for your efforts of learning how to walk. Like, your parents would cheer you on. And as parents, you were expected to fail. You were expected, because that is how you learn and that's how you figure it out. So why do we start giving ourselves such a hard time when we become adults? Why do we do that? It's very crazy. So let's question this. So why do we expect ourselves to get everything right the first time? This is another question as well. Like, who even made that up? Like, is that even truth? And to be fair, if you are not failing as well, chances are you're not really trying hard enough. So I have failed many times in my life. I've been through so many eras. I've had my job hopping era. I've had my extreme dieting era, my who even am I era, all of these different times in my life where I failed. I wasn't being successful. So say, for example, there was a stage in my life when I was job hopping. I literally had a different job like every 3 months. And there is a belief in society that the longer that you actually stay in your job, the better you are, the more loyal you are. And it's like this whole belief. So I actually felt like a failure because I was going from job to job to job. When actually, if you look at it at a different perspective, I was job hopping because I was trying to find out what I actually really wanted to do, what elements of each job I really enjoyed. So that's just a different way that you can really look at failures. Another instance as well in my life, like, I have been like the ultimate diet queen. Every single diet I have done, and nothing screams failure more in my soul at that time than not doing well at my diet. Like, I literally felt like the worst person on the planet. I used to go to some very well-known slimming classes, should we say, and if you know if you've ever done that, if you know, when you're in a room full of people and you're getting weighed in front of not in front of everyone, but in, in this sort of like, this scene of people around and like, oh, how did you do? Then you think you've been really, really good all week. You stand on the scales and then the lady's like, oh, you've put on a pound. And you're like, ah, God damn it. I put on a pound. And you're literally, I can't even describe the feeling you get. Like, you feel like you have just, I don't know, you failed at life. How ridiculous is that? When I look back at those times, I think, what on earth was that? But anyway, those failures and that constant cycle that I kept doing with the diets and, trying to shrink myself, like, I felt that to be successful meant you had to be skinny and look a certain way. But from all of those failures, I've learned actually that's not the truth. The truth is longevity of your body, looking after your body, making sure that you're healthy and strong. That's what it's about. And then a final story for you of one of my many fabulous failures. And this really sums up the idea of learning through doing and failing. And there was a time in my life when I felt really, really lost. And I didn't know what I wanted, what I needed to do, what direction to take. So naturally, one day I was like, well, I am going to get my tongue pierced, because obviously that's going to give me clarity on what my purpose is. And then at that particular time as well, I was volunteering because I couldn't work. I was like, right, I'll do some volunteering work. So I was at my local zoo doing a bit of voluntary work there. But I was also doing some voluntary work at a reptile place as well. So I was in there like looking after like all the snakes and the cute little toads and the chameleons. And I remember there was this massive, great big albino python called Cuddles. Oh, I loved Cuddles. He was like twice the length of me. I used to get him out of his little enclosure. We'd have a little cuddle because he loved a cuddle. There was a crocodile called Ali G. Oh, so there was vibes. There was this vibe in this reptile house. So anyway, this is when I was living in the flat with my boyfriend, who's now my husband. And he came home one day and I was just sat there watching the TV. And he walked past the bedroom and he paused. And he was like, "What is that?" And I said, "It's a vivarium." And he said, "I can see that. What is in it?" And I was like, "Oh, it's Rafaro, a carpet python." Yes, I bought a fucking snake. I did. So, very funny story. I mean, I can look back now and think how funny. There I was in my get the piercings and like get a snake era. But the purpose of this story, in that moment, like I realised, I am really lost in what I'm doing, but I am exploring, I'm trying to figure things out. Very, very questionable but hilarious decision making, and that is all a part of the becoming. Did I need a python to find myself? No, I fucking didn't. But did I learn something from this season of my life? Absolutely. And what I learned was I was looking for external validation. I was looking outside of myself to feel better. And I was getting the things and doing the things when actually I needed to go inwards and find my peace there. So we're taught that failure is final. But what if we saw failure as more of like a feedback, more as like refining where you need to go? And when I used to listen to Bob Proctor, one of his teachings, one of his stories that he used to tell us was about the rocket. So when a rocket is going to the moon, it is literally off course 97% of the time. So the rocket is actually failing its way to the moon. It just aligns itself. And I thought, that's such a great story. And so why do we, another question as well, why do we think that we have to get everything right the first time? Like, where does that belief even come from? So that's something for you to contemplate. So next of all, I'm just going to chat about two of my favourite people that fail, but they're amazing. So Ashley Graham, she is just an absolute icon. She's recognised as a supermodel. She was actually told that she was never going to make it in high fashion. She was too curvy, she was too different. But instead of shrinking herself to fit the mould, instead of like taking on that criticism, she actually broke the mould and she was like, no, I'm not going to fail here, and I'm actually going to pave a new path. And she did that. And now she's like the face of major campaigns. She's got a podcast. She's doing all sorts of amazing things. And then another one of my favourite people is Ed Sheeran. Oh, we love Ed. He was literally rejected by loads of record labels. Because he didn't look the part. He looked too ordinary. He was like walking around with his t-shirts on. He was really like raw and authentic, and people didn't like that. But he kept writing, he kept performing, and he kept believing in himself. He didn't succumb to that failure feeling. And he even said as well in one of his interviews, he wasn't actually born with the talent, he worked for it. You're not being rejected, you're just being redirected. I absolutely love that. So we're just going to make failure like our best friend. We're really going to have this mindset shift today. So here are a couple of little shifts for you. So number one, if you have been failing at anything this week, ask yourself, what is this actually teaching me? In every single failure, there is a hidden gem. Maybe it's resilience, maybe it's clarity, maybe it's the push that you need to get, to go bigger. Number two, remind yourself, I'm still in the middle of my story. This is very powerful. So you're not behind, you're not broken, you're building, okay? And this is such an important reframe to have, because we are only, say, in the middle of our stories. And then number three is zoom out. So will this matter in 5 years' time? Probably not. So when you're in something and you feel like you're failing, you're not doing very well, again, this is a really great way to gain perspective on, is this actually really a big deal, or is it just something I'm making up in my head? And here's a little affirmation for you. So I never fail, I evolve. Every part of me will rise. I love that. So what if you also stopped saying as well, instead of saying fail, say I experimented, I grew, I stretched, I showed up even when I wasn't perfect. I lived. Doesn't that feel so much better? And finally, I'll just leave you with this lovely little nugget for you, my loves. Your failure doesn't define you, but your response to the failure does. Okay, so your failure doesn't define you, but your response, how you react to that failure, does. So have a little think about that one. So this week, make sure that you have the best time ever. Really look forward to those failures, turn them into successes, because you are growing, you are evolving, and you are living your best life. See you in my next episode.